And Ambassador Arun Singh is now joining us live for the very latest on this. And Ambassador Arun Singh, well, your thoughts today on what has transpired so far in the last couple of days and what next for India?
It's a good time to take stock of what India has achieved and what are the challenges that are remaining. So through the action that India took on February 26, following the surgical strike that had been done in 2016, there's a clear message from India that it will now respond proactively when there are terrorist attacks in India, and not just expect Pakistan to be taking action, something that Pakistan has promised but repeatedly not fulfilled. So that was one important signal, and that will change Pakistan's calculations, because it was living under the assumption that India would not be able to take any action because of the nuclear cover that Pakistan had, and it could continue with asymmetric warfare against India. The second thing that has clearly been achieved is that the international community has recognized the legitimacy of India's action against terrorism. So when India took action, then no country criticized India for taking action across the line of control, across the international border. And several, in fact, came out with statements saying that India's action against terrorism was justified, and they were in full solidarity with India as it faced the challenge of terrorism. This is again something that would have caused concern to Pakistan, because clearly, because of its continued involvement with terrorism and terrorist groups now for several decades, Pakistan finds itself internationally, essentially in isolation on this particular issue. So that was, I think, the second important achievement in this context. When Pakistan, for its own domestic political reasons and the compulsions of the Pakistan military, took action on February 27, it hardly got any international support for what it had done, because it was seen not as an action in the context of terrorism or counter-terrorism, but clearly a violation of the line of control. And the sanctity of the line of control has been supported by the international community, as we saw also at the time of Kargil. So these, I would say, have been clear achievements, and a lot of countries expressing solidarity with India in the challenge of terrorism. Now, in terms of the challenges that remain, one action or one set of discrete actions are not going to be able to eradicate the challenge that India faces from terrorism. Therefore, the pressure on the subject of terrorism has to be sustained, and it has to be a multidimensional pressure, going beyond just the military, but the diplomatic, the financial, and other pressures. Now, Masood Azhar's listing has again been attempted at the UN Security Council by France, UK, and the United States. There is a silence procedure there for 2 weeks, and therefore, if no country objects by 13th of March, he would be listed as a global terrorist. So we have to see how China deals with this now. And clearly the government of India has to be in dialogue with China on this issue.
Right.
Should China again block his listing, as it has done in the past, then China's credibility will take a hit in terms of how it wants to project itself as a country in the global lead role.
Right.
So we have
Right. Ambassador Arun Singh, in fact, I want to talk a little bit more about Masood Azhar and the fact that the Pakistani foreign minister has given 2 interviews in 2 days to 2 international networks, suggesting that they know that Jaish-e-Mohammed chief is in Pakistan, he's unwell, and also that the Jaish-e-Mohammed had nothing to do with these attacks, and they have that on record because they have people in Pakistan who seem to be talking to the Jaish-e-Mohammed chief, Masood Azhar. So why do you think he admitted to all of this?
In the past also, he's made many statements that he's had to walk back from, and many statements were seen as faux pas. So he has, tendency to say things which put both him and Pakistan, from their perspective, in an awkward situation. But the fact is that all that he has said is true. Everybody knows that Masood Azhar is in Pakistan. Everybody knows that Masood Azhar works very closely with the Pakistan Army and the ISI, and they shield him and protect him. As you pointed out, if he's sick and is being treated at a Pakistan Army hospital, once again just reflects that linkage. And he was embarrassed by the interviewer, who pointed out that the Jaish-e-Mohammed, through its official channels and known channels, had claimed responsibility. And how is it that the foreign minister is denying that they are involved? But this is standard Pakistani practice. They have always said that we will investigate, give us evidence, we will follow up on that, and after a while they make sure that no follow-up is done. So I'm not at all surprised by what the Pakistan foreign minister had done. This is really the standard operating procedure. And India has to continue to work both through its own effort and through the international community to sustain the pressure on Pakistan. And I'd like to draw your attention to the statement issued by the French foreign minister yesterday, where he said that France reiterates complete solidarity with India in the fight against terrorism. He drew attention to the fact that France is going to be the president of the UN Security Council in this month, in March, and that France will do its utmost so that those responsible for the terrible attack in Pulwama are sanctioned.
Right.
So we have this opportunity of the month of March, where France is the president of the UN Security Council, to work with France and other friends of India at the UN Security Council on the subject of terrorism and have further actions taken against Jaish-e-Mohammed and other groups that Pakistan supports.
Yes, and Ambassador Arun Singh, now coming to America and its role, of course, we know now that after we showed evidence of F-16s being used, the Americans have asked, Pakistan for proof of where and how they were used, or rather misused. The end-user agreement clearly has been violated by Pakistan. Do you think there's going to be repercussions on that side as well, as far as Pakistan is concerned?
There will certainly be repercussions, because when the US had supplied F-16s and the AMRAAM missiles to Pakistan, the argument given was that these were being given for counter-terrorism purposes. And attention was drawn to what Pakistan needed to do on its western border in terms of challenges that the Pakistani state claimed that it was facing at that time through terrorist groups that were attacking the Pakistani state. Now, India even then had been very skeptical about that, because India's experience has been that whatever Pakistan gets from others, including the United States, essentially it uses against India rather than in effective counter-terrorism operations. But that was the line that the US had taken. And that was the line that had been put in end-use agreements and end-use certificates that Pakistan had given. So if that has been violated, clearly the US has to hold Pakistan responsible for that violation, and there should be consequences. The second aspect is that whenever the US administration supplies weapons to a country, it has also to notify Congress. And the notification lies in Congress for about a month, and the Congress can disapprove of that notification. So members of Congress would also now be aware of the fact that Pakistan has not fulfilled its commitments, so that if the US is at any time wanting to supply weapons to Pakistan, that can be challenged on the ground, that the end use that Pakistan gives, it does not observe.
Okay.
I would also like to draw attention to what happened in February 2016. At that time, the Obama administration had decided to supply additional F-16 aircraft to Pakistan, citing again the need for counter-terrorism effort. And India had objected to that, and the Indian government, the Indian embassy in Washington, had lobbied very actively with the US Congress to block that sale, because justification for counter-terrorism was not really there. And the US Congress had blocked the sale at that time.
Right.
So there will be implications, and we have to follow up on.
Right. And finally, Ambassador Singh, then whatever goodwill that Pakistan was talking about, or Imran Khan was talking about, do you think they've lost that with that absolutely sham of a video that they've put out of Captain Wing Commander Abhinandan Singh with multiple cuts in that video? Clearly, it is, of course, a distortion of facts.
Clearly, Pakistan agreed to release Wing Commander Abhinandan because the United States, Saudi Arabia, UAE, among others, had spoken to them and had encouraged them to take this step to de-escalate the situation that was there. And once Pakistan decided to go ahead with this, they tried to get maximum PR and propaganda advantage for themselves by saying that this was a goodwill gesture, that this was a peace gesture. So there was some appreciation internationally for what Imran Khan was claiming, what the Pakistan government was claiming. But with the kind of videos that they released, I think they've lost quite a bit of that PR effort. And also it is a violation of the Geneva Convention, which says clearly that any soldier who is in your captivity, you should not expose him to media and force him to come out with statements of this nature. Therefore, Pakistan would be seen to be in violation of a very important international convention.
Right.
And behavior really, it also reflects the struggle in Pakistan between the civilian government and the military. That while the civilian government was attempting something, the military was trying to undermine that effort to some extent.
Absolutely. Ambassador Singh, thanks very much indeed for joining us with your thoughts today, a day after Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman has been released by Pakistan.